You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 28th of January. 4 Asian men wielding axe and screwdrivers attack British man. Judge introduces the new Muslim get out of jail free card. Family's outrage as notorious killer bidding for freedom is granted anonymity by judge. Archaeologists revise image of ancient Celt. Vatican dismisses Guardian secret property empire report. Obama removing all military leaders from command if they will not fire on US citizens. Delhi gang rape suspect faces maximum 3-year jail term. Mali rebels torch library of ancient manuscripts. Thought for the day, our piggy political elite. And finally, not a pussy down a well, but a pony. UK news. 4 Asian looking men wielding axe and screwdrivers attacked a British man in Luton for no reason. A man was attacked with an axe and a screwdriver in broad daylight in Lidgecombe Drive. The 39-year-old was walking at about 3 p.m. on January 11th when a silver car pulled up close to him and 4 men jumped out. One man started punching him in the face, then 3 other men then got out of the vehicle and joined the assault, hitting the victim in the face with a screwdriver and on the leg with an axe. All 4 offenders are described as Asian men, between 25 and 30 years of age, and all got out of a silver 4-door Honda car, possibly a Civic or Accord. Detective Constable Martin Hart said the victim attended hospital for treatment and is now recovering at home. I believe there was a lady in Lidgecombe Drive at the time of the assault and I would appeal to her or anyone else who has information about this assault to contact the police in confidence. A World Day spokesperson said, "I'm sure all this is a big misunderstanding. These 4 Asians were more than likely a community outreach team attempting to spread the word of tolerance and peaceful coexistence when without warning they were set upon by this lone pedestrian who misinterpreted their mission." That is probably what the police report will read. Judge introduces the new Muslim get out of jail free card. A Muslim man who raped a 13-year-old girl he seduced on Facebook has been spared a prison sentence after a judge heard he went to an Islamic faith school where he was taught that women are worthless. Adil Rashid, 18, claimed he was not aware that it was illegal for him to have sex with the girl because his education left him ignorant of British law. Yesterday, Judge Michael Stokes handed Rashid a suspended sentence saying, "Although chronologically 18, it is quite clear from the reports that you are very naive and immature when it comes to sexual matters." Earlier, Nottingham Crown Court heard that such crimes usually result in a 4 to 7-year prison sentence. But the judge said that because Rashid was passive and lacking assertiveness, sending him to jail might cause him more damage than good. Rashid from Birmingham admitted he had sex with the girl, saying he'd been tempted by her after they met online. They then met up in Nottingham where Rashid had booked a room at a Premier Inn. The girl told police they stayed at the hotel for 2 hours and had sex after Rashid went to the bathroom and emerged wearing a condom. Rashid then returned home and went straight to the mosque to pray. He was arrested the following week after the girl confessed what had happened to a school friend who informed one of her teachers. He told police he knew the girl was 13 but said he was initially reluctant to have sex before relenting after being seduced. A World Day spokesman commented, "Dhimmi Judge Michael Stokes needs a jail sentence for being so ignorant about Mohammedan attitudes towards kafir women. Never mind the fact that she was 13 years old. How can these stupid idiots even be allowed into court, never mind issuing verdicts? If this paedophile had been a white Christian, the sex offenders register would have been thrown at him. This Muslim man was not so naive as he wore a condom, rather premeditated I would have thought. What did he take a 13-year-old to a hotel room for? To play tiddlywinks? Her parents should bring a civil case for underage sexual abuse." Human rights. He isn't even human. Family's outrage as notorious killer bidding for freedom is granted anonymity by judge. A family whose lives were wrecked by one of Britain's most notorious killers last night condemned the human rights ruling which cloaks his bid for freedom in secrecy. The man, whose own lawyer described his crimes as horrific and horrendous, has begun a taxpayer-funded court action demanding he be released from prison. Normally such a case would be heard in open court, but the order means his identity cannot be revealed. If he wins the case, it would see him transferred to an open jail, one step away from him walking out to the streets. The Daily Mail knows his identity and the vile nature of his crime, but is prevented from revealing it because of Wednesday's ruling at the High Court. The court said he might be in danger if other inmates at his prison learned his identity, and ordered that reports of the legal action be censored to exclude anything which might identify him. But last night a woman member of the family, devastated by his actions, condemned the judge's ruling. The close relative, who cannot be named because of the same court ruling, said, "He doesn't deserve human rights. He's not even human. He committed such a horrendous crime and should have to face up to it. What about my human right to live my life without looking over my shoulder because he's roaming free or trying to get released again? Does no one care about the families and the damage that's done?" At her semi-detached house, the middle-aged woman added, "I will suffer every day for the rest of my life because of what he's done. It will never get easier for me, so why should it for him? Why should he be given the protection of anonymity so he can escape what he's done when I can't?" The theory is that this order has set a worrying precedent that could apply to scores of killers in the future. Perversely, it appears to suggest that the more notorious and dangerous a felon, the more likely the public will be refused the right to know about their release. Muslims accused of Lego racism. Just when you thought that only people could get accused of racism, the legendary children's toy Lego has been accused by the Turkish Cultural Commission based in Austria. The Muslims are all upset because they say the Star Wars model of Jabba the Hutt's palace depicts a likeness to their Hagia Sophia mosque in Istanbul. They went on a rant about how the gangsters and criminal figures in the Lego scene at Jabba's palace depicted Asians and Orientals, along with the fact that Jabba is smoking a hookah. The commission on their website claims that it is complete racial prejudice. Lego's Catherine Sass has defended Lego's right and said that Jabba's palace and the figures included were only a design of the original Star Wars movie and nothing more. A World Date reporter commented, "If the cap fits, wear it. Now I know what to buy my nephew for his birthday next week." European news. The Celts were long considered a barbaric and violent society, but new findings from a 2,600-year-old grave in Germany suggest the ancient people were much more sophisticated than previously thought. The little Betelboul stream in the Danube River was completely unknown except to local residents, but that changed in the summer of 2010 when a spectacular discovery was made just next to the creek. Not far from the Hunberg, the site of an early Celtic settlement, researchers stumbled upon the elaborate grave of a Celtic princess. In addition to gold and amber, they found a subterranean burial chamber fitted with massive oak beams. It was an archaeological sensation that after 2,600 years the chamber was completely intact. The wooden construction was preserved by the constant flow of water from the Betelboul stream. In dry ground the wood wouldn't have had a chance to survive over so many centuries, said Nicole Endinger-Rist, the director of the research project handling the find. Since the rings in the wood allow them to date the other items in the burial chamber, researchers are now hoping to gain a new understanding of our Celtic culture and history. The result could change our view of the Celts. Roman writers in particular described the heterogeneous people as barbaric, only excelling in violence and war. But that's a distorted view according to Dirk L. Kraus from Baden-Württemberg State Office for Historic Preservation. There's also a bit of propaganda involved, since the Celts conquered Rome in the year 387 BC, so they couldn't have been so primitive, Kraus explained. The findings at the Hunberg near Hundersingen also indicate that the Celts living in the upper Danube region were more advanced than previously thought. Vatican dismisses Guardian secret property empire report. London newspaper exposes real estate bought with Mussolini money. The Vatican on Tuesday dismissed an article published by London's The Guardian newspaper on its alleged secret property empire as coming from another world. "I'm amazed by the article in The Guardian, which seems to come from someone who is amongst the asteroids," said Vatican spokesperson Father Federico Lombardi in response to the article accusing the papacy of using money originally handed over by fascist dictator Mussolini in exchange for Vatican recognition of his regime and offshore tax havens to create an international portfolio worth £500 million with real estate in the UK, France and Switzerland. These things have been public knowledge for 80 years as a result of the 1929 Lateran Pacts regulating relations between the Italian state and the Roman Catholic Church, the spokesperson added. On Monday, The Guardian printed an article listing elements of the Vatican's alleged secret commercial property empire, including the premises of Bulgari, the upmarket jewellers in London's New Bond Street, and the headquarters of the wealthy investment bank Altium Capital on the corner of St James's Square and Pall Mall. It also denounced the apparent lengths to which the Vatican has gone to preserve secrecy about the Mussolini millions. Too many foreigners in France, the French say. A survey in France published this week reveals 70% of the population believe there are too many foreigners living in the country, and 74% believe Islam is not compatible with French society. Some of the standout stats include: according to the survey, only 29% of French people believe the vast majority of immigrants who have settled in France are well integrated. 46% believe unemployment levels can only be cut by reducing immigration. 57% believe anti-white racism is quite common in France. 77% believe religious fundamentalism in France is a concern. 62% say they no longer feel at home in France. Studying the results of the survey for Le Monde, French historian Michel Wincock concluded that the ingredients for populism are there and not just in the ranks of Marine Le Pen's Front National party. World News: Obama removing all military leaders from command if they will not fire on US citizens. It is not a claim being made by some obscure personality who hosts a late-night radio show on shortwave, or by a known far-out lunatic seeking his latest 15 minutes of fame, but by none other than a Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Reports surfaced on January 22nd that Dr. Jim Garrow, nominated for the prize in 2009, made a shocking claim on his Facebook page in recent days that he was informed by a top military vet that the Obama administration's litmus test for new military leaders is whether or not they will follow orders to fire on American citizens if need be. Later he followed up the post by adding that the man who told him that is one of America's most foremost military heroes, whose motivation for divulging the information was to sound the alarm, Infowars.com reported. Naive checkbook diplomacy in Norway by Han Nabinto Herland. Torgeir Larsen, a junior minister for the Norwegian Labour Party, admits in Norway's largest newspaper, Aftenposten, on December 28, 2012, that Norwegian authorities closed their eyes to the realities of the Middle East. Too often they thought they were in the service of stability, but later found out that was not the case. A journalist has lifted the lid off cash inputs of the Norwegian government under the title of In Bed with the Enemy. Regardless, this acknowledgement of Norwegian naivety must lead to tangible changes in foreign policy in order to be of real value. It is stated that Norwegian checkbook diplomacy is de facto supportive of terrorist organisations that display significant intolerance towards Christians, Jews, gays or other minorities who are not considered sufficiently Islamic. Let's take a look at the statistics. Norway is one of the smallest countries in the world and one of the largest contributors to the Palestine Authority and others, with annual donations of over 700 million NOK. Especially since the current left-wing Labour government took office in 2005, the donations have exploded. What are these sums spent on? Recently the remuneration for suicide bombers was tripled. The Hamas terrorist who killed 30 Israelis in 2002 by now receives 20,000 NOK a month, according to the Times of Israel last September the 9th. Those who have carried out the worst attacks against innocent civilians receive the highest pay. Intelligence and Terrorism Information Centre figures from 2005 show that Palestinians have conducted 25,770 terrorist attacks, 147 suicide attacks, leading to 1,100 dead Israelis and 7,500 wounded between 2000 and 2005. Fatah conducted 214 acts of terrorism in 2003-2004 alone, according to 2005 Terrorism Review. Delhi gang rape suspect faces maximum 3-year jail term. An Indian teenager accused of taking part in the gang rape and murder of a 23-year-old student in Delhi will be tried as a juvenile and so face a maximum of 3 years in prison if convicted, a special panel has ruled. The ruling shocked the victim's father as he watched the television news. A sudden current ran through my body in disbelief. "I can't believe this," he told Reuters. "How can they declare him a minor? Did they not see what they did?" The teenager has not been formally charged because police were hoping he would be declared an adult so they could include him in the main trial of his 5 co-accused. The panel's decision on the youth is likely to infuriate many people, among them protesters, some police and political leaders, who have called for the age at which people should be tried as adults to be lowered from 16 to 18. A government committee examining changes to sexual crime laws last week ruled out such a move. Timbuktu mayor: Mali rebels torch library of ancient manuscripts. Islamist insurgents retreating from the ancient Saharan city of Timbuktu have set fire to a library containing thousands of priceless ancient manuscripts, some dating back to the 13th century, in what the town mayors described as a devastating blow to world heritage. They also burnt down the town hall and governor's office and shot dead a man who was celebrating the arrival of the French military. French troops and the Malian army reached the gates of Timbuktu on Saturday and secured the town's airport. But they appear to have got there too late to save the leather-bound manuscripts, which were a unique record of sub-Saharan Africa's medieval history. The manuscripts survived for centuries in Timbuktu on the edge of the Sahara, hidden in wooden trunks and boxes beneath the sand and caves. The oldest dated back from 1204. Climate shocker. Carry on as we are until 2050 and the planet will be fine. A register reports new research by a Norwegian government project indicates that humanity's carbon emissions produce far less global warming than had been thought, so much so that there is no danger of producing warming beyond the IPCC upper safe limit of 2 degrees centigrade for the many decades. Project manager Turji Bernsten, a professor at the University of Oslo's Department of Geosciences and a senior research fellow at the Centre for International Climate and Environmental Research, Oslo, says, "In our project we've worked out finding out the overall effect of all known feedback mechanisms. We used a method that enables us to view the entire Earth as one giant laboratory where humankind has been conducting a collective experiment through our emissions of greenhouse gases and particulates, deforestation and other activities that affect climate. The Earth's mean temperature rose sharply during the 1990s. This may have caused us to overestimate climate sensitivity." Renowned Swedish climate boffin Carolyn Leck, who was not involved in the research, commented, "These results are truly sensational. If confirmed by other studies, they could have far-reaching impacts on efforts to achieve the political targets for climate." Thought for the day. We have our own pigs in the trough. I thought I would just cast an eye over the motley selection of our political parties in this country today, and I'm totally ignoring our own British National Party in this and concentrating on the 3 so-called main parties and the conundrum of politics. Now, I'm not a political correspondent, so I'm speaking from the grassroots and basics of what I believe. We have Cameron promising a referendum on the European Union if he gets into power at the next general election. Now, by my reckoning, he promised the same sort of thing before the last elections, and we didn't get one. But also it must be registered that the Conservative Party did not get total power but a coalition with the Lib Dems, which could obviate the referendum promise, as the Lib Dems do not want any change to the EU arrangement of them taking all our money and giving us back futile and censory laws. So if Cameron is voted in, do you think this referendum will take place, or will it sit on the shelf along with capping the immigration and looking after our own? Yes, I think you can safely say that is exactly what will happen. Cameron to some extent is in a difficult position, as are Labour, because both parties have and are betraying their roots. The Conservatives have become almost as red as the Labour Party have become blue. In days of old you could spot the difference. Labour people would resemble Michael Foot, badly dressed and very earnest, and to give credit they had usually passed through hard times and struggles. Labour unions, although they gained too much power in the 70s under Wilson, were needed for industry to safeguard their people, all of which went to hell in a hay basket in the 80s with the miners' strike. Now, most of you will hate me, but I was a Thatcherite in the 80s, and sticking to my guns, I attended a small business conference in Birmingham where I was selling computer books and she gave a speech. Now, the one thing I will say as another woman in politics, although in a much smaller and humbler capacity, when she walked in the room, something walked in. She really knew how to play a room and an audience, which has never been bettered in that party or indeed other parties since. She did at least try to elevate the electorate rather than dumb them down, although this came at a price for a large percentage of the Labour voters. Now, the miners' strike, and here I am speaking as a person who has never lived in a mining town or gone down a mine. But I did hear at the time that the collieries concerned did have new machinery for those mines, but the men, through their unions, didn't want to use them, and apparently most of this new equipment is still down there. Her own cabinet, mainly male, used bullying tactics to undermine her and finally get rid of her. Now I'm not saying she was anything near perfect, but at least she did what it said on the tin. She did attempt to give England a bit of pride back, which in the ensuing tide of Blair and Brown frankly was the last thing on their minds. Nowadays Labour is just a bandwagon for the educated Marxist progressives, with Millipede heading them, and it has been said that if Millipede's brother sets himself up against him, there will be blood. I have no time for Labour now. They are way out of touch with the voters and their situations, which will get worse. The more immigration we have, the more job markets will change to reflect this. Labour, more than anyone, have demolished the industrial future of this country with the multicultural education programme and dumbing down of the electorate. It's better to raise people's standards than lower them, and they seem to be carrying on the English tradition of everyone else counts but the English. Farage I will comment on, as the Lib Dems are really obsolete, and UKIP has become, ably backed by the present government, the thinking man's nationalist party, or rather that is what the followers of Farage think. This is despite the fact that the man himself is despised within his own party, and whenever I've seen him doesn't mix with his own people. I stood against him in Buckingham in the last general election, and that morning his plane crashed. Unfortunately the chinless wonder survived, but at that time the British National Party were getting media publicity, and the Sun heading read, "Right wing brings down UKIP," and I only wished it had been true. Since then, with the copious amounts of money poured into UKIP from the government and that golden egg of theirs, the EU, Farage has been barely off the BBC this year. Do their voters really think he wants to get out of the EU? Of course not. It pays way too much into UKIP coffers. Why kill the golden goose? The mere fact they bleat they are non-racist means nothing. The BNP aren't racist either. Neither supposedly is Labour, which is full of Muslims, and the Conservatives full of every other ethnicity. In fact, just to keep up with the US, there's a half-white guy of colour who's being promoted as the new Obama for the Conservative Party. Just how low and transparent can one get? Of course his money and background look every bit as dubious as the American president's. Anyone who's a multi-billionaire by 30-odd hasn't got there looking after the homeless and needy, has he? And, unlike Obama, he has successfully married up on some occasions, which helps. So not a lot in this bunch are really very different. All are paying homage to the great god Mammon, and all want to jump into the pig trough, although this time they'll have to make it look like a lot more legal than before. All will back the banksters, globalisation, and if necessary wars to train our troops or simply get rid of them, and our elderly will still suffer, as indeed will our homeless increase. At least in Thatcher's time we could all blame her and her policies. Now we cannot, as all the three parties, Conservative, Labour and UKIP, operate under the guise of doing good and helping the world. And if you're seen to fight that, you are immediately right-wing, racist or fascist. Frankly, I have never seen a country change so much into a fascist state as I have over the last 20 years. We are a cowed and beaten people, but as history states, every doggy has his day, and ours is yet to come. And finally, not a pussy down a well, but a pony. More than 30 firefighters and a specialist rescue team were called in to free a pony stuck down a well. The pony, Nova, was found 8 feet down the well and chest deep in water by her owner Grace de Hilliard Alvaro from Gowrie, Fitzpaine, Somerset. She'd become concerned after she couldn't find the pony and searched several local fields. True to form, her rescuers freed Nova using specialist lifting equipment and removing the shrubs that had hidden the well from view. Mrs Hilliard Alvaro, 47, said it was very lucky she landed on her feet and not on her back. Luckily Nova is a very calm creature and was very well behaved. She expressed her gratitude to all the firefighters who rescued Nova, saying, "We would love to thank the amazing team of more than 30 who came to Nova's rescue." This presenter says, and I bet that Nova was rather a happy little soul as well. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.